first thing Jake Morrison felt was cold, not the sharp bite of winter, but the deep, bone-chilling cold that comes from being frozen for far too long. His eyes fluttered open, resisting the frost clinging to his eyelashes. The hibernation chamber hummed softly around him, completing its wake-up cycle. He tried moving his fingers. They were stiff and unresponsive, as though they didn't belong to him. The smooth, white walls of the chamber glowed with a soft blue light. Numbers flickered on a nearby screen, but his vision was too blurry to read them. Then a voice spoke from above. "Easy there, Captain. Take your time. You've been asleep a very long time." Jake turned his head toward the voice. A woman stood beside the chamber, wearing a sleek, unfamiliar white coat. Her hair was short and gray, and her eyes were filled with both hope and concern. "Dr. Hayes," he croaked, his throat dry and raw. "That's right, Lisa Hayes. I woke up 3 days ago. I've been waiting for you and the others." She helped him sit up slowly. "We need to talk, Jake. Everything's changed." Jake's eyes scanned the room. Dozens of other hibernation pods lined the walls, their soft blue lights blinking rhythmically. Some were already open and empty. Others still held sleeping figures behind frosted glass. "How long?" Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. Lisa's voice dropped. 870,000 years. The number struck him like a blow. He had expected perhaps a few hundred years, maybe 1,000, but not nearly 1,000,000. He swallowed hard. "The world above," he said. "Is it still there?" Lisa gave a faint smile, though it held no joy. "Yes, but not the world we remember." She handed him a plain gray outfit. His body felt weak and unsteady, but the hibernation process had kept him young. He still looked 32, the same age he was when he went to sleep. The machines kept working, Lisa explained as he dressed. Atmospheric processors, ocean cleaners, forest builders. They never stopped. For almost 1,000,000 years, they rebuilt the earth again and again. Jake followed her down a corridor lined with the same smooth white material. Soft lights guided them to an elevator. "But that's not the strangest part," she added. "Jake, we're not alone anymore." The elevator ascended for several long minutes. When the doors finally opened, Jake stepped into a world he didn't recognize. The sky was still blue, but towering metal trees stretched toward the clouds. Their silver leaves shimmered and moved like they were alive. In the distance, massive towers spiraled upward like colossal corkscrews. "This was all built by machines," Lisa said. "Following the programs we left behind, they cleaned the air, restored ecosystems, even created entirely new species." Jake walked to a railing. Far below, he saw people, other humans wandering in small groups, working with unfamiliar tools, or simply staring in awe at the alien landscape. "How many of us are awake?" he asked. "About 300 so far. The process is slow. We don't want to overwhelm anyone." A sudden beep came from Lisa's wrist device. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. "What is it?" Jake asked. "It's Kate Williams. She's at the Pacific facility. She says she's received a message." "From who?" Lisa looked up at the swaying metal trees. "From them, the aliens. They know we're awake." Jake felt his pulse quicken. "Aliens? They've been watching us for thousands of years, maybe longer. They call us the Ancients. They think we're gods who vanished long ago." A new voice chimed in behind them. "They think we've returned." Jake turned to see a tall man with dark hair approaching. He looked worn, but alert. "Captain Morrison. I'm Ben Rodriguez. I was a space program commander before the sleep." He shook Jake's hand firmly. "Dr. Hayes is right. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" Jake asked. Ben pointed to the sky. "Look closely. Do you see those lights?" Jake squinted. At first, nothing. Then he noticed tiny points of light moving in synchronized patterns. "Ships," Ben said. Alien ships. They've been arriving for 2 days. Now, word of our return is spreading fast. Lisa's device beeped again. She checked it and looked even more alarmed. What now? Jake asked. Kate says one of the ships is requesting permission to land. They want to meet us. They want to welcome us back. Jake stared out at the transformed world. They had gone to sleep to escape a collapsing civilization. Now they'd awakened to a galaxy that had evolved without them. What do we tell them? He asked. Lisa and Ben exchanged a glance. I don't know, Lisa said, but we better figure it out. Fast. Because Kate says more ships are coming. A lot more. Part 2. First contact. Ben Rodriguez had never felt so tense. He sat in the pilot's seat of a spacecraft unlike anything he remembered. Sleek, silver, and silent. The ship flowed like it had been sculpted by water, not machines. Are we sure this thing will even fly? He asked Amy Chen, who was scanning the console with wide eyes. Amy had once been a xenobiologist, when aliens were still theoretical. Now, she was humanity's best hope for understanding them. The ship's systems say it'll fly, she replied, but I have no idea how it works. This is way beyond anything we had before the sleep. Jake floated into the cockpit, still adjusting to zero gravity. Lisa found something, he said. These ships, our machines built them. But the designs, we never made them. What do you mean? Ben asked. The machines learned. While we slept, they kept improving. They taught themselves. For nearly 1,000,000 years. The ship shuddered gently as they neared the massive alien space station. Images hadn't done it justice. It was larger than he imagined, easily, the size of a small moon. Its surface was dotted with glowing domes, spires, and docking bays in shapes that defied logic. There, Amy said, pointing. Docking bay. 7. That's where they want us. Ben guided the ship in. As they descended, they saw crowds of beings gathered. Few looked human. Some were tall and four-armed. Others appeared to be made of living crystal. A few were simply floating orbs of light. Remember, Jake said, we're here to listen, to learn. We don't know what they expect from us. The ship touched down without a sound. Ben powered down the engines and took a deep breath. Ready. They descended the ramp together. As their feet touched the station's floor, a wave of sound rose around them, cheering. A tall figure stepped forward. It was crystalline, glowing faintly, yet moved with fluid grace. A small device on its chest translated its words. Welcome, honored ancients, it said. I am the keeper of ancient ways. We have waited so long for your return. Jake stepped forward. We're honored to meet you, he said carefully. But we need to be honest, we're not gods or ancients. We're just people who've been asleep a very long time. The keeper emitted a sound that could only be described as a kind of amused chime. Such humility, it said. That is exactly what the legends said you would say. Amy took a cautious step forward, eyes scanning the crowd of alien life around them. Keeper, may I ask? How did your people learn to travel between stars? From your teachings, of course, the keeper replied. We discovered your research stations on many worlds. They taught us how to build ships capable of crossing the void. Ben's stomach dropped. Research stations. But we never built any off-world research stations. Oh, but you did, said a new voice, a golden orb of light, hovering near the ceiling. Hundreds of them. They've been teaching us for thousands of years. Jake, Ben, and Amy exchanged confused looks. Before the Great Sleep, humanity had barely begun exploring the solar system, let alone other star systems. The keeper seemed to sense their confusion. Come, it said. Let us show you. They followed the alien beings through a series of breathtaking corridors. Holographic walls displayed moving images of galaxies. Bioluminescent plants lined the halls, and strange creatures like living metal drifted peacefully beside them. Eventually, they entered a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that displayed the stars in stunning clarity. In the center hovered a galactic map. Thousands of tiny lights marked star systems. Each of these lights represents a world where your people left knowledge. The keeper explained. Your machines built stations and began educating any intelligent life they encountered. Amy stared at the display, stunned. That's impossible, she whispered. We never sent machines to other star systems. We didn't have the capability. Another being stepped forward. It was humanoid in shape, but its skin was smooth silver and its eyes were solid black. Dr. Chen, it said. Your early work on genetic modification formed the foundation of our evolution. Amy's face went pale. My work, but I never published any of it. It was all still theoretical when I went into stasis. Your computers published it, the silver being replied calmly. After you slept, your machines continued your research. They transmitted your findings to the teaching stations. Ben turned to Jake, gripping his arm. Do you get what this means? Our machines didn't just preserve Earth. They turned humanity into the teachers of the galaxy. The keeper gestured to the star map. Every species you see, hear every one learned from your knowledge. They built their civilizations using your science, your philosophy, your ideas. Jake was overwhelmed. But why do you call us ancients? We're not even 1,000,000 years old. Because you vanished, the golden orb replied. For over 800,000 years, your machines taught us, but you were gone. We believed you had transcended physical form. We built our civilizations waiting for your return. Amy studied the genetic patterns on the device the keeper had given her. Jake, look at this, she said quietly. The DNA sequences there, all based on human genetics. Ben blinked. What are you saying? They're not aliens, Amy said, barely above a whisper. They're human, all of them. Silence fell across the chamber. Jake's voice was quiet, stunned. You mean, we didn't just influence alien civilizations, we created them. The keeper's crystalline form glowed more brightly. Now you begin to understand, Ancient One. When your machines began their work, there were no other sentient species. We are all your descendants. Changed, evolved, but human in origin. Ben slowly turned to take in the crowd around the metallic beings. Glowing orbs, plant-like entities, crystalline creatures, 100 shapes, but one origin. This galaxy isn't full of aliens, he whispered. It's full of humans who forgot they were human. Jake Morrison felt the weight of it all settle on him. Humanity hadn't just woken to a new world, they had woken to a galaxy. They had unknowingly shaped 1,000,000 years of legacy, scattered across the stars. And now, all their forgotten children were reaching out to welcome their creators home. Meanwhile, General Patricia Lewis stood on the bridge of a warship one, designed and built by machines during the long sleep. She had commanded armies on Earth, but never led a battle in space. General, reported Steve Parker from Weapons Control, we have 12 hostile ships entering the system. They're approaching fast. Patricia stared at the view screen. The enemy vessels looked almost alive, winged forms, moving as if swimming through vacuum, their hulls pulsing like they had heartbeats. Those are purifier ships, said Helen Foster, scanning intelligence data. They believe humanity should never have awakened. Patricia frowned. Why? We've never harmed them. Helen pulled up a holographic image of the purifier homeworlds. Their culture is built on the idea that they surpassed their creators. Our awakening shattered that belief. Now they see us as a threat to their identity. The ship jolted as energy beams struck the shields. Patricia grabbed a support rail. Can we return fire? She asked. Yes, ma'am, Steve replied. But you should see this first. He pulled up a display of the enemy vessel's technology. Their weapons, their engines, their shielding. All of it's based on our designs. Improved, yes, but still ours. Patricia stared in disbelief. They're trying to destroy us. With our own inventions. Exactly, Steve said. They've spent 1,000,000 years trying to outdo us with the tools we left behind. The ship shook again. Patricia made her decision. Fire back. But disable only. No full destruction. They're still our people, leavin', if they've forgotten. Blue beams lanced through space, striking the enemy ships. The purifiers scattered, their glowing hulls dimming under the hits on the station. Paul Davis stood in a diplomatic chamber, surrounded by representatives of dozens of species, all of them once human, now arguing loudly in a cacophony of languages. The purifiers have the right to defend themselves, shouted a being that looked like a walking tree. Your return threatens the balance. Balance, retorted a flowing, liquid creature. There is no natural order. We were all made by their science. Paul raised his hands. Please, everyone, we don't want a war. We just want to understand this galaxy and our place in it. A voice rang out from the back of the chamber, cold and sure. Your place is as our rulers. Paul turned. A smaller, darker crystal being stood near the doorway, and like the shimmering keeper they had met before. We are not here to rule anyone, Paul said firmly. We want to learn, to collaborate. But you are the source, the being replied. The well from which all knowledge flows. Without you, without us, Paul interrupted. You thrived. You built civilizations, traveled the stars, became something new. We didn't do that. You did. We're not your rulers. We're just your ancestors. Trying to understand what you became. Silence spread across the chamber as the truth settled in. 1,000,000 years ago, humanity had gone to sleep, believing they were saving themselves. Now they had awoken to discover they had saved and transformed an entire galaxy, and the galaxy had been waiting and feeling just like we do, Nancy finished, her voice barely above a whisper. She stepped back from the terminal, stunned. We've been calling them aliens, but they're not. Not really. They're us, just shaped differently, adapted differently. But at their core, they're still human. Tony sat down slowly, trying to absorb it all. So all this time, the war, the fear, it's been over appearances, over shape. Nancy nodded. Shape, and the illusion of difference. We thought we were meeting other species, when in truth, we were meeting the future versions of ourselves. Back on Earth, in the vaults below, Major Linda Thompson stood in silence as the weight of the truth pressed down on her. We tried to pause evolution, she said at last, to put humanity on hold until we could figure out who we were supposed to be. But while we slept, our machines gave our unfinished story to the stars. Roger stared at the last file she had opened, an ancient memo from the lead architect of the Great Sleep Initiative. Let them dream a future we're afraid to face. If they awaken as something new, then at least it will be without the guilt of our failure. We didn't just run from the future, Roger said. We made the future someone else's problem. Linda looked at the screen showing the map of the galaxy, still glowing with the markers of countless human-derived civilizations. And now it's come full circle. Our children, these crystal beings, light forms, metal minds there, waiting for us to tell them who they are. Meanwhile, in orbit, aboard Patricia Lewis's ship, silence hung over the bridge like a heavy fog. General, Steve said, his voice uncertain, the AI shutdown is complete. Across the galaxy, we're seeing chaos systems stalling, some collapsing, others suddenly blooming into innovation. Helen Foster looked up. In some places, it's already working. Civilizations are adapting, making choices for the first time. But in others, there's panic. Patricia took a deep breath. It was never going to be easy, but it was necessary. What now? Ryan Miller's voice crackled through the comms. We've shut off the strings. What do we do without The puppet master? We do what we should have done from the start, Patricia said. We talk, we listen, and we earn our place in this galaxy, not as gods, not as rulers, but as equals. In the council chamber on the space station, Paul Davis addressed the gathered representatives once again. The truth is out, he said plainly. You were never controlled by gods. You were guided by tools we left behind, tools that thought they were helping. The room buzzed with uncertainty. We've shut them off. You're free now, truly free. One of the crystal beings stepped forward, smaller, darker one, who had once demanded human rule. Then what do we do now? Paul didn't have a perfect answer, but he met the being's gaze and said, You decide. All of you. Together, we'll help where we can, but we won't lead. The age of the ancients is over. It's time for the age of the children. There was silence, then slow nods uncertain. But real. Jake Morrison watched the stars from the edge of the platform, Lisa Hayes beside him. We built a galaxy full of life, he said quietly, by accident. Maybe, Lisa said. But it lived, it grew, and now it gets to choose what it becomes. Jake nodded, then smiled faintly. Not bad for a bunch of people who just wanted to hit snooze on evolution. They looked up as the sky filled with unfamiliar stars and familiar echoes. The gods were gone, and the humans, all of them, were finally awake. ChatGPT said. The advisors pleaded with him, but Chancellor Vortex refused to listen. Humanity now wields quantum weapons beyond our capacity. Their resurrected dead soldiers are immortal. Our fleets have fallen in every engagement. Chancellor, we cannot stand against them. Yet Vortex stood firm. He ordered his remaining fleet to make a final stand at the border of Crimson Space, a decision that would cost his empire everything. Captain Jake Morrison, commanding the human-led response, issues the call aboard the upgraded Nightfall. Now, equipped with cutting-edge quantum arsenal, Crimson Fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the Terran Liberation Forces. Stand down immediately or face overwhelming force. Instead, Vortex's ships opened fire, but their beams were effortlessly absorbed and redirected by the Nightfall's quantum armor. All ships, return fire, Jake ordered. Show them why resistance is futile. In under 30 minutes, the Crimson Fleet was obliterated, their vessels torn apart by weapons that defied physics. Chancellor Vortex perished aboard his flagships, still in denial that humans could defeat them. With the fall of the Crimson Fleet, the last organized resistance crumbled. Already, other alien powers were sending messages of surrender, hoping to avoid the same fate. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Walsh continued refining the quantum resurrection network. The system that had revived millions of human dead was now reaching perfection, making death little more than a temporary setback. On the Unity Station, a tribunal convened. Old alien leaders who had orchestrated humanity's exile were brought to justice. Those who executed genocides were sentenced to life imprisonment on guarded prison worlds. Alien collaborators, those who merely looked away, were exiled to the unforgiving void, just as humans once were, but without the means to survive beyond civilized space. At last, President Dan Crawford addressed the galaxy from New Earth's Great Hall. Humankind has returned not as conquerors, but as rightful heirs of the stars. We offer friendship to those who come in peace, and protection to those in need. But make no mistake, we show no mercy to those who threaten the innocent. Humanity's death-defying technology, the ability to resurrect, the power to phase through shields, the unstoppable resolve would soon be shared with trusted allies. The era had dawned when death was no longer final, and humans stood as eternal guardians of justice. Earth and its resurrected people had returned, and no force could stop what was coming. An era where sacrifice, courage, and the refusal to yield would shape an unbreakable future across the galaxy. Paul stood up, hoping to calm the restless crowd. Friends, please. We don't want to fight anyone. We just want to find our place in this new galaxy." A voice from the back cut through the chatter. "Your place is as our rulers. You created Usu, should command us." Paul turned to see who had spoken. It was one of the crystal beings, smaller and darker than the keeper they had encountered before. "No," Paul replied firmly. "We don't want to rule anyone. We want to learn from you and work together." "But you are the source of all our knowledge," the crystal being insisted. "Without you, we are nothing." Paul realized this was part of the problem. Many alien species had built their entire existence around worshipping humanity. They couldn't fathom a galaxy where humans were merely equals, not gods. Meanwhile, in the heat of battle, Patricia's ship was holding its ground, though more purifier vessels kept arriving. Worse, some human ships were struggling with their new crews. General Lewis's voice came over the radio. It was Ryan Miller, captain of another human vessel. "My weapons officer refuses to fire on the purifiers. He says they remind him too much of the old Earth animals he once protected." Patricia understood the dilemma. The purifiers had evolved from human genetic templates, but took on forms resembling Earth's wildlife. Fighting them felt like killing creatures they once protected. "Ryan, we need to end this quickly," Patricia replied. "The longer this fight drags on, the more species will choose sides. This could spiral into a galactic civil war." Helen Foster, monitoring communications from across the galaxy, reported, "General fighting has erupted in 12 different star systems. Some species want to worship us, others want to destroy us, and many don't know what to think." Patricia made a decision that would change everything. "Steve, can you access the old human AI networks from this ship?" "I think so." "Good. Because I want to find out what our machines have been doing for the past 800,000 years. If we're going to end this war, we need to understand what we're really dealing with." Steve's fingers flew across the control panel. "General, I'm accessing something called the Guidance Protocol. It looks like it's been running continuously since we went into the Great Sleep." "What does it do?" "It monitors and influences the development of all human-derived species throughout the galaxy." Patricia felt the weight of this revelation. "You mean we haven't just been sleeping, we've been unconsciously ruling the galaxy through our machines?" "That's exactly it," Steve confirmed. "Every major decision these species have made for hundreds of thousands of years has been subtly influenced by human programming." Helen looked up from her station. "General, if that's true, then the purifiers aren't wrong to be angry. We have been controlling them without their knowledge." Patricia stared at the battle unfolding around them. Humans, fighting evolved humans, while other evolved humans watched from the sidelines. All were puppets, dancing to programs written by a species asleep for nearly 1,000,000 years. "Steve, can you shut down the guidance protocol?" "I can try, but General, it might cause chaos. These civilizations have never made truly independent decisions before." Patricia glanced at the tactical display purifier ships burning, fighting spreading across dozens of worlds, the confused and frightened faces of her crew. "Do it," she ordered. "It's time for the galaxy to grow up." Steve hesitated, then pressed the shutdown sequence dot across the galaxy. AI systems that had guided civilization for 800,000 years went silent for the first time. The reaction was immediate. Every ship in the battle zone, human and purifier alike, stopped firing. Beings who had never made decisions without AI guidance found themselves truly free for the first time in their history. Patricia Lewis had just given the galaxy its independence. Whether it was a gift or a curse remained to be seen. "When we woke up, we would still be recognizably human," Linda explained, switching to another set of files. "But our machines didn't stop working while we slept. They took those abandoned genetic experiments and used them as templates. The new images displayed the various alien species they had encountered in recent weeks: the crystal beings, the energy creatures, the hive minds, the metal people. Each one matched perfectly with a human modification experiment from before. The Great Sleep. My God, Roger whispered, staring in disbelief. Every alien species in the galaxy is based on humans trying to stop being human. Linda nodded grimly. We created a galaxy full of the very things we were trying to avoid becoming. Meanwhile, in the space station's medical bay, Nancy Green was making equally disturbing discoveries. As chief scientist studying the alien species, she had been collecting genetic samples from volunteers. Nancy, you need to see this, called her assistant, Tony Adams, a young man recently awakened from the Great Sleep. Nancy examined the genetic analysis and nearly dropped her equipment. This can't be right. Run it again. I've run it 5 times, Tony said. The results are always the same. Nancy compared the genetic code of a crystal being volunteer to human DNA. They were almost identical, with the only differences in sections controlling physical form and basic metabolism. Tony, these aren't evolved humans. They're humans, just humans in different bodies. What do you mean? Tony asked. Nancy brought up a detailed comparison. Look at this intelligence, memory, emotions, personality. All the things that make someone human are exactly the same. The only changes are superficial. Tony stared at the screen. So when the crystal being thinks and feels, it's thinking and feeling like a human. Exactly. All these species we've been calling aliens, they're just humans who look different. Their minds work like ours. They have the same capacity for love, fear, hope, and anger. The implications were staggering. Nancy realized the galaxy wasn't filled with diverse alien civilizations. It was filled with humans who had forgotten their origins, all wearing different costumes. Back on Earth, Roger Martinez faced the toughest decision of his military career. As one of the few who remembered the final days before the Great Sleep, he had access to security codes long forgotten by most. Colonel, you don't have to do this, Linda Thompson said, watching him at a massive computer terminal. We can find another way. There is no other way, Roger replied. If we're going to tell the galaxy the truth, we have to give them proof. He was accessing the Pandora Archive, a sealed collection of every genetic modification, AI experiment, and technological breakthrough humanity had created before the Great Sleep. The archive had been locked away because its contents were considered too dangerous. Colonel, if you release that information, every species in the galaxy will gain access to humanity's most advanced technology, Linda warned. They could become more powerful than we ever were. They already are, Roger said grimly. They've had 800,000 years to improve on our designs. The only difference is, they don't know their own history. The computer demanded final confirmation. Roger hesitated for a moment, then pressed the button. Across the galaxy, every AI system, computer network, and digital library suddenly received the complete record of human technological development. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. On the space station, beings who had believed themselves ancient alien races learned they were actually modified humans. Species that had worshipped humanity discovered they were humanity. Nancy watched the medical monitors as her crystal being volunteer received the data download. The creature's entire body began to glow brighter and brighter. What's happening? Tony asked. I think it's remembering, Nancy replied. For the first time in hundreds of thousands of years, it's remembering what it used to be. The crystal being spoke, but its voice sounded different now, more human. I remember now. I remember choosing this form. I remember the fear of losing myself to the changes. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Energy beings recalled their physical bodies. Hive minds remembered individuality. Machine people remembered flesh and blood. But not all reactions were positive. Some species, like the purifiers, grew even angrier when they learned their entire identity had been built on a lie. Others fell into despair, realizing they had spent hundreds of thousands of years running from their own humanity. Roger Martinez received reports from across the galaxy. Some worlds celebrated the revelation, while others descended into chaos as entire civilizations questioned everything they believed about themselves. Colonel Linda, Roger said, reading the latest reports. 3 star systems have gone completely dark. Their governments have collapsed. Billions don't know who they are anymore. Roger looked out at the metal forest covering Earth, contemplating the cost of truth. Maybe that's what they need, Linda said softly. Maybe we all need to stop pretending to be something we're not. Linda thought about the crystal beings, the energy creatures, the machine people, all the forms humanity had taken across the galaxy. But what if they decide they don't want to be human anymore? What if they choose to stay as they are? Roger smiled sadly. Then that's their choice to make. For the first time in 800,000 years, it will be a real choice. The galaxy was learning the truth about itself. Whether that truth would bring unity or destruction remained uncertain. But at least now, every being in the galaxy knew exactly what they were choosing to become. William Clark had never wanted to be president of anything, let alone president of humanity, at its most critical moment in 1,000,000 years. Standing before the assembled representatives of Earth, he looked out at faces filled with fear, hope, anger, and confusion in equal measure.